So this presentation is on exploratory data analysis, and we'll be working on Jupyter Notebook for coding and visualizing the data. Firstly, I'd like to show you a few slides. So what is exploratory data analysis? The very name, it suggests that it is exploring and analyzing the data. So in this process, we try to gather as much as knowledge and understanding about a specific domain, and then we try to formulate questions and find the most sensible answers to it. So as you can see, these are the few objectives of EDA: to suggest hypotheses about the causes of observed phenomena, assess assumptions on which statistical inferences will be based, and to support the selection of appropriate statistical tools and techniques. Now, there are a few steps to this data analysis process. Firstly, data exploration. This is where you cut down your massive data set to a manageable size where you can focus your efforts on the most relevant data. Then we have data cleaning. So this is where you remove your incorrect or corrupted or duplicate data within the set. Then comes the model building. This is the most important part of the data analysis process. This building process involves understanding and paying attention to what is the most important part of the data, so as to answer the questions like I've said before. Then comes the last process, which is presenting the results. So this can be done by using charts, graphs, tables, and etc. Now let's start working on the data set. We'll be using the data set murder crimes in India using Jupyter Notebook. So this specific data set is by Sugant. He's a student of UW Madison, which is in United States. And this is obtained from the website called Kaggle. So let's get started. So this is the Jupyter Notebook. So the very first thing we need to do is to import certain libraries. So I'm importing pandas. Import pandas as pd, Python directory. Then I'm importing numpy as np. Now these two, I'm importing seaborn and matplotlib. These are for visualizing data. So after we run this code, now we can go ahead and import our data set into Python. So this is the location of my data set, and I've named it as murder since we're working on murder data set. So once we run this piece of code, we get the output, and this is the data set. So all we need to first understand the data set properly, what it is exactly dealing with, what are the rows and what are the columns, and how they are related, how the variables are related to each other. Now to display the number of rows and columns, we run this code. We specify the name of the dataset we've given here, murder. So murder.shape, we get the number of rows and columns in our dataset. So here we have 1018 rows and 11 columns. So this is not a small dataset, not a very big one. This is actually a correct required amount of rows and columns we have to perform the exploratory data analysis. Now when we run this code, list murder.columns, we get the column names. Now in order to properly understand the data set, so this data set contains information from year 2001 to 2010 and 35 states and union territories. The age group is divided into 6 categories, as you can see. (10 to 15-year-old victims). Now firstly, it's less than 10-year-old victims, 10 to 15, 15 to 18, 18 to 30, 30 to 50, and 50 plus. So we run this code to check the data types. So we have object, integer, and float. Object is for the names, integer is numericals, and float is decimal numericals. So we can go ahead and visualize the data. So we run this piece of code which is imported from HTML, hypertext markup language. This is the code. And this is the output we get. So this shows the murder rates from highest to lowest, and we can interchange the values from lowest to highest also. This is shown from 2001 to 2010. To plot the murders in India over the years from the highest to lowest is what we did here. Now to visualize the data of murder victims per year, we run this piece of code. We specify this piece of code to visualize the data of murder victims per year. So this is the output we get. Next is the gender distribution of victims per year. So this is the code we run to distribute the victims on the gender basis. So once you run this piece of code, this is the output you get. Now once you take a look at this output, you understand that males are more prone to be murder victims as compared to women over the years. But the number of female victims is remaining the same. But the number of male victims are decreasing over the years. So this is what we understand from this data visualization. So we can go over to the next one, which is age distribution of victims per year. So we run this piece of code to obtain age distribution of victims per year. Now once you take a good look at this data, we can understand that compared to people of other ages, the age group of 18 to 30 years is more prone to be a victim of murder. The rise in 2002 might be due to the riots in Gujarat. Another age group which is most likely to be victim of murder is 30 to 50. Now we run this piece of code to obtain data visualization on age and distribution of victims. So once you run this code, you get this data, and when you have a good look at this data, you can understand that again age group of 18 to 30 is more likely to be a victim of murder, and 30 to 50 secondly. Gender distribution of victims per state. This is the code for that. So once you run this piece of code, you get this data. So although country level murder is decreasing slowly over the years, states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, and West Bengal has the highest number of victims over the years. So this is how we perform exploratory data analysis using Jupyter Notebook to understand the data in a very sensible manner.